He spent 18 years behind bars for a murder he didn't commit, framed, forgotten, and forced with the face of someone else's crime. But what if I told you the man they locked away knew the real killer all along? This isn't just a story of injustice. It's a story of silence, race, and a truth buried so deep it almost stayed there forever. In the humid summer of 1996, in a quiet Mississippi town called Pine Bluff, where dirt roads cut through cotton fields and time seemed stuck in a loop, an innocent black man named Elijah Boone was arrested for a brutal murder. The townspeople called it justice. The newspapers called it swift. But no one knew the real killer was watching the entire thing unfold. This is a story of deception, racism, and a shocking twist that came years too late. Jonah Caldwell was found in his workshop on July 2nd, 1996. He was a 58-year-old white mechanic known for fixing everything from tractors to church bells. His throat had been slit, and the walls of his shop were smeared with blood. Nothing was stolen. No signs of forced entry. Whoever did it knew him. It was personal. The town spiraled into fear. A man like Jonah wasn't just a mechanic. He was a community figure. And just like that, the pressure on the Pine Bluff Police Department intensified. Within 48 hours, they had a suspect, Elijah Boone, a 29-year-old black man who lived 2 blocks from the crime scene. Elijah had a prior conviction for marijuana possession and had done 6 months in county jail. It didn't matter that he'd recently turned his life around, worked 2 jobs, took care of his sick mother, and even volunteered at church events. What mattered was that someone had seen a tall black man near Jonah's workshop the night of the murder. That was enough. Police picked Elijah up at work. They questioned him for 13 hours without a lawyer. Eventually, exhausted and terrified, he signed a confession he didn't understand, typed up by the officers. Elijah said, "I didn't kill nobody," but his voice was drowned by the town's collective judgment. Elijah's court-appointed attorney was underpaid, unprepared, and uninterested. The prosecution presented the coerced confession, vague witness testimony, and a bloody shirt allegedly found near Elijah's home, later revealed to have been misplaced and undocumented for 72 hours. The defense's plea of mistaken identity was mocked. No fingerprints, no DNA, no murder weapon. But the jury? All white. Verdict, guilty. Sentence, life in prison. Elijah cried in silence as they took him away. His mother collapsed in the courtroom. Parchman Farm, Mississippi's most infamous prison, was a hellhole of sweat, screams, and secrets. Elijah survived by withdrawing from everything. He became invisible, but his mind never rested. For 17 years, he wrote letters to lawyers, Innocence Project's journalists. Most were ignored. Some replied, but the case seemed sealed tight, until one letter landed in the hands of Marla Deeks, a retired crime scene analyst turned private investigator. Marla was 62, widowed, and battling early arthritis, but she had a sharp eye and a sharper sense of justice. Something in Elijah's file gnawed at her. Why was a confession typed but signed on the last page? Why was the shirt's blood never DNA tested? And why did the key eyewitness, Harvey Knowles, move out of state the day after the verdict? Marla drove back to Pine Bluff. She found Harvey in a trailer park in Arkansas, shaking and alcoholic. After some coaxing, he confessed. He'd been paid. Paid to say he saw Elijah. Paid by a man named Dean Sellers. Dean Sellers was a Pine Bluff native, around Elijah's age. White. Clean record. But Marla found whispers. Old arrest records sealed from public view, a dismissed assault case, and a private connection to Jonah Caldwell. Jonah had fired Dean 2 months before his death after catching him stealing car parts. Dean had motive, and Dean had disappeared in 1997. Marla kept digging and tracked Dean to an alias in Tennessee, Michael DeSalter. She staked out his home and took DNA from a discarded soda can. Then she took it to a lab. The results came back in 3 days. The blood on the shirt found near Elijah's home? Not Elijah's. It was Dean Sellers. More chilling. Under Jonah Caldwell's fingernails were skin cells. Back in '96, DNA testing wasn't advanced enough to profile them. But now, it was a match. Dean Sellers had killed Jonah. Dean was arrested at a hardware store in Nashville in 2014. When confronted, he didn't deny it. He said, quote, "I didn't think they'd go through with convicting the black guy, but when they did, I stayed quiet. What else was I supposed to do?" His lawyer tried to argue mental instability. Dean got 40 years. But here's the twist. As Marla celebrated Elijah's exoneration, Elijah himself revealed something astonishing to a journalist. "I knew who did it all along. Me and Dean used to hang around sometimes. He told me after the murder. I didn't speak up. Thought no one would believe me. But what I didn't expect was to take the fall." Yes, Elijah knew who the killer was. But because he was a black man in Mississippi in 1996, he also knew no one would listen. Elijah walked free after 18 years. The state gave him $250,000 in restitution. His mother died while he was inside. He never got to say goodbye. Elijah started a nonprofit to help wrongfully convicted inmates. He called it the Shadow Switch Project. He never forgave the town, but he didn't return hate with hate. He built something out of the ashes. Pine Bluff doesn't talk about the Elijah Boone case anymore. Dean Seller's name is barely mentioned. But if you ask around, they'll point to the courthouse steps, where Elijah once stood, silent and shattered. Sometimes justice comes too late, and sometimes the truth isn't what saves you. The silence is.